All right, all right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am James Oliver Jr., co founder and CEO of Kabila, an inclusive co founder matching app and global community of badass founders. So, super excited today. Have a great conversation for you about resilience. You know, why that matters more than ever now as a founder. And I have a really good friend of mine, Lizelle Van Vuren, who's a 5X founder. And she's going to come talk with us a little bit about this. So while I bring Lizelle up, if you could just let us know where you're coming in from in the comments, share this out, use the share button to share this with your friends and followers on social media, and drop your questions in the chat. This is going to be a super vulnerable conversation. So let's get ready, like buckle in, yo. All right. So, Lizelle, what up?
What's up, my friend? So good to see you, James.
Yes, yes, yes. So we got people commenting already. Danny, I see you connected with folks on the call. Where you coming in from, bro? Let us know. Yes, it's so good to see you. So what inspired this conversation with everyone today is Lizelle and I were on a panel 2 or 3 weeks ago, excuse me, in Boulder at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit about resilience. And, you know, I feel like we could still be talking.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, exactly. Alex Raymond, the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. Yes, Alex.
What's up, Alex?
Listen, if you're any founders out there listening to this, like I'm going to tell you this, especially early stage, it doesn't matter. All y'all need to be at this Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. It's not about pitch decks, business models, fundraising. It's not about any of that. It's about how you as a founder can show up as a whole damn human.
Yes.
Right?
It's honestly one of the best conferences I've ever attended. And I've attended like 1,001.
Right. Go to consciousentrepreneur.us to learn more. You can connect with Alex here. I'm done plugging that for you now, Alex. You can put my 25 cents in the mail for me. Thank you very much. So look, but real talk, like everybody just drop in the comments where you're coming in from. But it was a great conversation. People were really inspired by it. Like for both days, everybody was like, oh my God, what a good talk, what a good talk, what a good talk. And, you know, being a founder is really freaking hard. You know, like we're streaming on all these multiple channels, so I won't drop any expletives. You know,
oh boy.
I expletive a lot. Apologies. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to behave myself.
Bleep Lizelle.
Yes, exactly right. But it's hard, and it's especially hard for overlooked founders in the current fundraising environment. So we just wanted to come and have an honest, vulnerable conversation. We don't see a lot of vulnerability on social media. Mostly what we see is a bunch of smoke and crap. I know you agree with that, right, Lizelle?
Yeah. I feel like it's really important to talk about the real stuff, the real experiences, the entrepreneur's journey, you know, not just, you know, the wins. Those are really important to talk about as well and to celebrate. And I'll talk a little bit about, you know, the weight of endurance and resilience today in our conversation when we get cooking. But yeah, it's important for fellow entrepreneurs to hear from other entrepreneurs, because when you're in the thick of things, you want relatability. You don't want to feel like you're all alone. And, you know, even though you're trekking along on your own journey, you want relatability from other founders, you know?
100%. Hey, Desiree, good to see you. So let's get right into this because I have some questions for you, and I know we're going to be riffing off each other. And folks, like if you have questions or comments, please drop them in the chat in the comment section. We'll do our best to get to all your questions and highlight your comments. So what is resilience to you, and why does it matter?
Yeah. I want to start by, if we had to look up resilience in the dictionary, like what does it actually say, right? So resilience is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness, things that are hard. It's also the ability it's the ability of something to spring back to shape. Okay, so now that we have some of that like planted in our minds, that's really interesting. The way I like to think about resilience, and I spoke about this at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, this being part 2, I'm really excited to dive into it. I think about resilience as an outcome I think about resilience as an outcome of endurance. So for me, when I think about resilience, I'm really having a conversation about endurance, especially as an entrepreneur. Athletes have, I think, a similar conversation about endurance and resilience. So, what am I talking about here? So, life is kind of like this gym of endurance. We're born, we have our childhoods, we enter the workforce, maybe we have education, like we're enduring all these life events. And not everybody's life events take the same turns, take the same shape, looks the same, are linear. You know, I think what's really relatable for human beings and really relatable for fellow entrepreneurs is that when you show up at the moment where you're beginning to be an entrepreneur, where you're building beyond yourself, where you're creating a product or building a business, you've likely have like a lifetime of things that you have endured, which has curated what I call the resilience muscle. And I think of it literally as a bicep. And the more that bicep and more that endurance muscle has been worked by what you've endured, the more you can take on. So it's not necessarily a black and white thing. It's not necessarily like the same for every other person. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you and I, and thousands of other entrepreneurs that have sat down, and dozens of entrepreneurs that we chatted with at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, we could really relate in the context of, yeah, you're right. Like a lot of my life experiences kind of molded me in the sense where, now the shit that I'm dealing with when it comes to, co-founders, hiring, go to market strategy, all these KPIs. Beyond that, like how I survive in this notion of building beyond myself and building with people who want to be a part of something, like our startup or our company or whatnot. So I'll halt at that, which is when I really think about resilience, I really think about endurance. And I think the more you endure, the stronger that bicep, meaning the higher your resiliency kind of score can be, and the more weight that you can take on. And the next thing I'll talk about is that weight, because being resilient, and you talk about this a lot, James, is a weight. And even though we're resilient, you don't always want to have to be. And I know you have a lot to say about
Yeah,
that.
I do. I fancy myself as being in the 99th percentile of persistent and resilient people on the planet. So I do think your take on resilience is interesting in that it's something that can be learned and developed and strengthened. Um, so you were just talking about do I always want to be resilient? Well, no, I don't always want to have to be resilient, right? Like I just tweeted this 2 days ago, or yesterday
Right.
maybe it was. Like just because
Right.
I'm resilient AF doesn't mean I always want to be. Why?
Mm.
Because it's freaking hard, right? It's hard. It weighs on. I only speak for me. It weighs on me, right? I don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be nice. I was texting with somebody from one of my communities a little while ago, and
Mm.
she was like, congrats on raising funding. We just actually got a commitment for a $10,000 investment, uh, seed investment from one of my previous co-founders. I'm a 3X founder. This is my first co-founder for my first startup, which failed. And like, yesterday, I was kind of having a day, man, because it's like the
Mm.
weight of all the damn no's
Mm.
in my inbox,
Mm.
and it's a lot.
Mm.
So like, I don't always want to have to be resilient. I want to be able to coast, sometimes. So that's what I was saying. Thankful to get a yes after all the no's. That was yesterday. So I had to just kind of just chill. After I got that yes, I was thankful. She was like, well, have you celebrated yet? I'll celebrate once the wire clears the account, but it's not going to be a big celebration. It's like I've already given thanks, but I want to keep it moving. But just because we are resilient, and just because overlooked founders have to be resilient, and just because I grew up, poor and not the best neighborhood. I hate to talk about that because it seems so like cliche, but it's true, right? But it's because of that I grew up resilient, and I think it's because of that is why founder teams made up of more than one gender, race, or ethnicity give investors a 30% greater return.
Mm.
And that's at the core of what we're doing with Kabila, with our co-founder matching app. You see here on the screen. If you're looking for a co-founder, you can go visit joinkabila.com, and you could get on our co-founder matching app MVP, which launched a few weeks ago. But this is why we're focused on overlooked founders and inclusion, because at the end of the day, they've had like a circuitous path. It hasn't been bulldozed for them.
Mm.
They've had to be creative. They've had to flex their biceps, like you said. And this is why we're focused on that demographic. So yeah, 100% everything you said there.
Yeah, what's all of that's interesting, and congratulations on a yes yesterday. It's really hard to be on this journey when you're also focused on being venture backed. Like, it's a lot of rejection, and I think that rejection is, when I'm talking about building that muscle, like, all that rejection is just constant, and somehow you have to. Phew, yeah, please.
It's like sometimes I feel like my inbox is a dumpster fire of no.
Yeah.
Right. And he put so much of that you could take, like, and I'm not going to be messy here, but there was one massive organization that was doing some grants for Black founders. And I didn't get selected. That's fine. But then they sent me another email that I didn't get selected for some other thing I didn't even apply for.
God. Yeah.
Right. Keep your unnecessary no's out of my inbox, please, and thank you.
I don't need an accidental
big
rejection.
Company. I'm like, come on. Like, people have to be mindful of that. Like, founder mental health. I'm a big proponent of mental health, and we're digressing a little bit here, but it's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
Big proponent of mental health.
Yep.
We have a foundation for Black parents who are entrepreneurs, and we paid for 400 mental therapy sessions in that community. And we had some money before. We were actually paying for founder therapy for members of our Kabila community, which it's a great free community. You can go to joinkabila.com and join our free community for great founders around the world. That's very, very, very important, founder mental health to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me come back to after I congratulated you, like, a point where, to build on kind of what I mentioned earlier and everything you just said, which is, you put it interestingly, like, resilience is almost a learned behavior. Yeah, that's an interesting framing, because I do think, I think you can be born resilient, depending on what your circumstances was literally coming into the world. I know for me personally, I think I was born resilient due to a number of lived experiences of my mother. What I'll say is, this strengthening, this endurance muscle that keeps boasting and boasting and boasting, it has a strength and it has its weaknesses. So when I'm thinking about resilience, I think about, especially as an entrepreneur, I think about, visualize a backpack. And so you're walking through these experiences, these rejections, a no, and there's moments of celebration in all of this. Let's not forget that. But I have this visual of a backpack and all these experiences of things that you're enduring. You're kind of putting like a brick in the backpack. And before you know it, this backpack that you're wearing is heavy.
100%.
It's super heavy. Now, the challenge and the opportunity is to figure out, how do I become disciplined enough to understand, much like an athlete, that what I endure, I don't have to become, I don't have to identify with forever.
Or carry.
Or continue to carry with you for a lifetime. So there is a discipline for us to learn how to take some of that weight out of that backpack, off of those shoulders, remove some of that weight. And we can talk about some things that us as people who happen to be founders and entrepreneurs have to focus on that. I'll give you a really quick set of examples of things that I do every day of my life to take some of the bricks out of the backpack, to make some space from the things you have to endure, to make room for wins, for celebration, for taking a deep breath. Speaking of taking a deep breath, some of the things I have to do and remind myself to do is just take a deep breath. Even if it means I have to take a deep breath for 2 or more minutes, every now and then you just need to take a deep breath and you need to come back into your body, because the mind of a founder is always moving at a million miles a second, right?
You know
Yeah.
what? On that point,
Yeah.
I think that's right, and I also think that I can only speak as a black founder,
Mm-hmm.
and I suspect this is true for other overlooked founders.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like William's saying, just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a little black and white for me,
Mm.
because like some of these things intellectually, but then you have to navigate like some of these messages in your head and these things that
Mm.
that you're experiencing from being a black founder in my case,
Mm-hmm.
and just it's hard, man. It's a
Yep.
mind game, which is why,
Yeah.
to what you're getting at, the breathing is important. Seeing a therapist is important. Like
Yes.
I talk to my therapist regularly. I
Mm-hmm.
just spun up some new therapy sessions because I'm recently engaged, as you know, and spun up some therapy sessions for my fiance and I to talk about how to effectively manage the toxic co-parenting relationship I have with my ex-wife.
Mm.
Right. So I understand how that's affected not just
Mm-hmm.
me, but and her, but us collectively, and be able to lean into some of these blind spots that I have around that.
Yeah.
So mental health and mental wellness matters a lot.
Yeah. That's significantly important. And um, yeah, so I'll run through that list and then we can really unpack that like you just did, James. And I always appreciate learning from every other founder that I have the honor and privilege to get to know about lived experiences and how that translates into the entrepreneur's journey. So things that, just to wrap up the idea of how to kind of empty that backpack a little bit, how to take some of this weight off of our backs, if you will. You know, I take a walk 2 to 3 times every single day so I can get
Oh
out of
wow.
my
A
head.
day?
Yeah, a day. Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I try to clock 3 to 4 miles a day. And for me, that's like vitamins. For me, that's like survival. For me, I've been doing that for about 16 years. I never miss a day without walking unless I'm deadly ill.
That's why you look so
Um,
fit. William says
I'm
nice.
trying, man. I'm
William says
trying.
nice.
Thanks, William. Yeah, and it helps me clear my mind. It also helps me make decisions. Sometimes I can take a call on those. Sometimes I'll listen to a book. I always have my little puppy Leo. We go for a walk, and so
Leo.
there's a dual benefit to that. Everybody's trying to stay healthy in this household, but
Yes.
walking, I think, is one of those dynamic things that entrepreneurs need to do more of. It is meditation in motion, it is movement, it is physiological, it is chemical, and
Yeah.
it is a profound asset. It is a profound tool. It sounds ridiculously simple, but these kind of daily habits, yeah, exactly, Damon, are, I think, hypercritical. And you have to figure out what these means for you. Some people love a bike ride. Some people like to stretch. I work out every morning and I have my wind down every night from a like a physical standpoint. I think of my body as an athlete and I think about entrepreneurship as a source of athleticism. I feel like if I don't train like that and have a lifestyle that I can live up to, having to endure a lot of things like rejection. And I'll get into, we're not just talking about things like rejection, but let me just get through the list. So, breathing, walking, meditation is a big one. Whatever that means for you. You can do 1 minute a day. I don't care. Just so you can start to learn really how to observe our monkey minds. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, as founders, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as creators, as instigators of good, as people who are building and operating, we have a lot on our mind. And the way to make some room in our minds is to start learning how to observe the mind and to not let the mind take over, which leads me to really think about, mental health. I think therapy and coaching are really hypercritical. I've built 5 companies in my career after I spent my first 9 years of my career in enterprise tech. And I'm self-taught on a lot of shit, but I also have a few degrees that make up some good of what I know. um, all that to say, the biggest commitment I made to myself as a founder this year was I was devoured. I was devoted and committed to not build my next company without hiring a therapist. So for the past 2 months, I've been working with a new therapist that also happens to focus on entrepreneurs and founders with a
Oh,
deep personal, entrepreneurial
Amazing. Who's this?
experience.
Who is this individual?
Yeah, I'll tell you her name, and she's based here in Denver, Colorado, where I'm based. And it was really important for me to seek out someone that can resonate like on a human level, like an experiential level. And also, I'm not the only
Yeah.
founder and
You,
entrepreneur
you
that
know
she's
what's interesting
talking
about
to.
that, Lizelle,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
so one of the ways I'm staying resilient and persistent is by leaning into my faith. And I do that through,
Mm.
so you found a therapist who has an entrepreneur focus. I have something called the Church for Entrepreneurs.
Okay.
That's an incredibly important part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Amos Johnson, he's in my Parapreneur Foundation community. He has his own international network of people. But
Mm-hmm.
every day he drops a podcast. I mean, it's Christian based. If you happen to be a Christian, you could go check out, I think he's changed it to Amos Johnson Ministries now, might be the name of the podcast. But just do a search for that if you're into that sort of thing. Like that thing, he talks a lot from the entrepreneurial perspective. That thing will give you life. It's called The Daily Word with Amos Johnson is what it's called. So anyways, I apologize for interrupting, but I
No,
love
I,
that.
I I like that, and I think that's resourceful for others to know that your spirituality, your faith-based belief system, your headspace has the ultimate, amount to do with how you get through every day, how you do endure things, how resilient or
Mhm.
not resilient you are. For me, Stoicism and Buddhism is some modalities and philosophies that I research, and I wouldn't say I'm practicing or Buddhist or anything of that nature. But I think for me, studying a lot of theology and spiritual beliefs and faith systems and belief systems, I have a background in studying psychology in a deep way, and so understanding what motivates a human being to live up to your full potential means that you get to understand yourself, and you have pillars and things around you, whether that's physical modalities like outlets like breathing and therapy and walking, and also input streams that supports you to have a
Speaking of
positive
walk,
headspace.
when are you
Yeah.
doing? William
Yeah.
wants to know when you're
Got
doing
a
your walk.
question.
When are you doing your walking?
Yeah, or in the AM or midday or post day. That's a great question. So I usually go for like a mid morning walk, and I usually go again at noon, and then I go again like around 4 or 5 p.m., like kind of when I wrap up some work. And then, I mean, Leo, my pup, might have to go like one more time, for business sake, like around 7 in the evening. So walking to me is like blood flow. It's like
Yeah,
breathing.
it is.
So
It's great. It's
yeah,
so
and
good.
it's different for everybody. I think if you can and are able-bodied, a minimum of a 30-minute walk at least once a day is
Yeah.
important, depending on your climate and stuff. Maybe go in the morning so it's
I,
not so hot.
I tend to ride my bike. I try to get
Yeah,
out about 3 times a week. If I can get out and get a full 12-mile ride, and that's what trail is. If I can't, I just do like,
yeah,
4 to 5 miles each time I get out. But that's
yeah,
everything. Andrea's in here. Andrea, I met her in person
yeah.
at
Hey,
the
friend.
Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, which is great. To
She's a
follow her
great founder.
social, absolutely.
Yeah.
William says, lovely to your walking plans there. Hey,
Thanks,
folks, this
man.
is, y'all are listening. Do you have any questions or comments? Like, we'd love to get y'all to jump in here. Like, what do
Yeah,
y'all think about some of these points that we're making? Like, how are
yeah.
you being more resilient? Like, are you tired? Like, if you're tired, like, what are you doing to rest? Like, how are
Mm,
you
mm,
being more resilient? Because right now, like, I'm gonna tell you a quick story. People who know me know I went through Techstars,
mhm,
and we went through Techstars, and we were pre-product, pre-revenue, and we were advised to spend the entire time talking to customers, which we did. And the goal there was to come out and figure out exactly what we need to build, go raise money. But the whole fundraising landscape changed while we were there. And when we got out in
mm,
November, which is a terrible time to be raising money, nobody's
mhm,
writing checks for pre-product, pre-revenue startups anymore
mhm,
for the most part, right? Especially not for overlooked founders. So what does that mean? So that means that we ran out of money. We were
mm,
traveling back and forth to Austin. It was a team of 3 at the time. We burned through a ton of cash from traveling every week and having to stay there. And we don't have a product. Nobody's writing checks for that. Like, what do we do?
mm,
Do we just take our ball and go home, fold up our tent? Well,
mm.
no, because I already told you I'm super persistent. So we've been working. We've had to be creative to find ways to put money in the bank, all the while working on revising our business model. Um, which I mean, I just told you we just got a $10,000 commitment. While
Mm,
people are like, oh, it's only $10,000, whatever. Don't sleep on small checks, man.
mm-mm,
Because don't sleep on small checks. That check right there is going to help us get to market. We work very hard on our go-to-market strategy while we're in Techstars. We can now get to market. I'm in Atlanta, and we're going to start. We co-work out of Atlanta Tech Village, and we're
mm,
going to start with our go-to-market strategy at Atlanta Tech Village. And Chris, who was my co-founder, he was my technical co-founder. He's a super talented developer, and he's going to be leaning in to help Caleb, my CTO co-founder,
mm.
wherever he can. He's a great like resource and possible mentor for Caleb because he's been doing this for so long. So that $10,000 is going to be a lot more than 10. And he's actually part of an angel syndicate up in
Mm,
Wisconsin.
mhm.
So I'm going to ask him like, is there anybody else in your angel group because that angel group focuses on Wisconsin entrepreneurs, but is anybody else in there who is vision and mission aligned with what we're doing who might want to write us a $10,000 check too? Because I darn sure would take that too, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. No, don't discount any support. No. Yeah. Daily
100%.
naps. Yeah, that's a big deal. My wife likes to take daily naps. We don't have any
Man, I
kids,
can't
but
nap
she
anymore.
values it.
I can't take a
I
nap
can't do it.
anymore.
It changes my blood sugar, my blood pressure too much. Like when I try to wake up from a nap, it's like trying to wake the
Uh,
dead from the
I
dead.
can't even get to sleep. I would love to be able to take naps during the day, but I love that for you, Damon. That's so good.
Yeah, no, Damon, you're on the right side of the nap strategy.
Yeah. So
I
William
think
has a
that's
process and
fantastic.
system for his
Mm,
program routine that's essential
mhm.
to sustainability. Love that, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely. AT on the building.
I do think when you think about entrepreneurship, you have to calculate the lifestyle that you're trying to engineer for yourself. You're building a product, you're also building a company, but you're also engineering a life for yourself and what that looks like. How do you take all these meetings? Do you do this business? How do you build this? And I think first time, even second time, sometimes even third time, when you're building companies, you sacrifice all of you, everything, all of it, your mental state, your physical body, your health, your mind, your family, your friends. Disco naps. That's great.
That's hilarious.
Uh,
I don't know what that is, but I love it. I don't.
yeah,
Where can I get me a disco now? I'm here for the disco
that's like
naps,
a
bro.
t-shirt. No shit.
I'm here for the disco naps.
All that to say, like, I think if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, you're simultaneously thinking about a lifestyle that you're trying to engineer for yourself. Because if you want to go and build a venture backed company and, raise 10 plus $1 million for that, you have to understand that you're signing up for a very specific lifestyle and you're going to have to train every day to be able to live up to that lifestyle. And that's a very different ball game than if you're bootstrapping a company and your goal is to make $1 to $2 million in annual revenue and you love the idea of that. And people can call that all sorts of weird things. People go, "Oh, that's a cute lifestyle business or whatever."
Whatever.
Stop it. Be quiet.
Yeah.
Don't ever interrupt someone trying to engineer a great life for themselves. What
100%.
a wonderful thing to build something that generates $1 to $2 million in revenue every year. You've got 3 employees, you're living your life, you're taking 3 vacations a year, your health is good. I'm sorry, you're winning. You're
Right.
winning, you're winning. So don't let
100%.
anybody try and stifle you by saying, well, this is the way you have to do it. Entrepreneurship is way more vast than the essence of building something that is venture backed or venture backable. Entrepreneurship is somewhat of an identity for many, and you have to tackle that. And it's a struggle. Sometimes you identify with that too much that you cannot break apart from that, especially when shit's tough. And that can be detrimental to some people's mental health. All that to say, make sure you understand the kind of life that you're trying to engineer for
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
So I love this comment from Andrea.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this since your talk. I do believe resiliency is easier when you put yourself first,
Mm,
but it's also a skill that you develop when you are decisive with your personal growth. I feel like,
mm.
yeah, that kind of sums up some of what you've been saying, Lizelle. You agree or not?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, if you want your business or your company or your product to succeed, you have to put yourself at the top of the totem pole because you're the one that's going to make that possible or
Yeah.
impossible. And if you are not top of totem pole, if you sacrifice all of you, there is nothing left of you And I promise you, there is no opportunity for success when you're like, a shell of a human, and it'll make you sick. Trust me.
Yeah, and
Burnout
that's a
is not a joke.
no, it's not, and that's a perfect segue to this question here. Do you believe resilience is a choice? It's like you either are or you just give up on yourself. Maybe that's where
Mm,
depression comes in. I don't know. Just thinking out loud. I mean, I love the vulnerability in that
mm,
question, Desiree. And I know
yeah.
you've been grinding hard on your business, Easy Oat Burgers. She has this great product. Why don't you can you drop the link, Desiree, so I can share with everybody? It's a really great product. It's oat based burgers, vegan, really good. But go ahead.
I love to, first of all, thank you for this question. It is brilliantly vulnerable and honest. I want to hint at something I call the learning versus winning modality. I kind of came up with this during the Conscious Entrepreneur panel with James and Piers. What it thinks about is okay, so is resilience a choice? Yes, I think so, but it's a lived experience as well. So some of us didn't choose all the things we've endured. Some things we do choose to endure. Some things we blatantly are unaware of that we endure. All of this taxes us. So resilience builds but can also break. Remember the backpack. If the weight is too much, it will bring you to your knees and you can't move. I think about that as burnout, or ultimately just like harrowing, life-changing events where you literally feel like you can't get up from these experiences in your life or in your business or whatever. So I'd like to introduce something I call the winning or learning, dynamic, which is you're rarely winning and learning at the same time. Think about that for just 2 seconds. You're either learning and then you get a win. And while you're winning, there's celebration, there's accomplishment, there's achievement, there's
Well, that's if you
goals
take the time to
met.
celebrate, which I'm not so awesome at doing.
Right. Well, that's a choice, right? And so, but
Mhm.
nobody reminds us that we should do these things because it's like, shush, keep going, be quiet, keep going, keep going, keep going. And that's a lot of social norm narrative. But in Desiree's kind of context, what I'm hearing is like, if we're just constantly in learning mode, you're just compounding like, oh, more lessons, oh, more lessons, oh, more lessons. And there's no wins. There's no celebrations of wins. There's no breath. There's no break. There's no just a gap in putting all these bricks in the backpack, and there's no room to take some of that bricks out. And celebrating a win is one of those ways that you can take some of that weight off of your back, right? Off your shoulders. If it's just constantly you're in learning mode, meaning you're just constantly in discomfort, you're just constantly taking it on, taking it on, taking it on, whether that be life, whether that be your company, your business, your family, whatever, you'll burn out. You'll break down. It'll bring you to your knees. We can only handle so much as a human being. Now, it's unthinkable, it's unimaginable, it's unmeasurable what I think humans are truly capable of enduring. It's extraordinary. Like literally, think about human history, like what we have endured as human beings with different walks of life. So, to close on that a little bit, the good stuff happens when we're uncomfortable and we're learning and resiliency is building, but we are like painfully aware and making time and taking the time to be disciplined to take some of that weight off, because what happens is it becomes armor. And God knows I can write a book about this shit because I have plenty of armor. And every day I have to work at bringing some of that armor down. A lot of the shit that you endure makes you resilient, but it gives you so much armor. And so you just take on and take on and take on. Before you know it, no one can penetrate that. No one can touch you. No one can relate to you. You can't relate to anyone else. You're feeling kind of hopeless and you're feeling kind of exhausted. And so this is why I believe one of the most impactful things for a human being, for an entrepreneur, for a founder, is to have peers. This sounds so silly and cliche, but to have a community of human beings that you can be this honest with, so you can go, you know what? I'm feeling overwhelmed. I've endured so much shit the last 6 months. I don't feel like I have a win. And then let your peers extract a little bit of that story and help you rewrite a little bit of that story, because we are our toughest critics. And we don't have friends like James and I telling each other like, fuck yeah, high five. You got a yes yesterday. And I'm not going to let you not celebrate that all fucking week long. We have to help each other because remember, showing up at entrepreneurship, we've already endured so much. Most people choose entrepreneurship, not just be like, oh, this is cute. I'm going to go build a business, go make a shit ton of money. Like you're likely choosing this for so many other reasons. I can talk about that for way too long, but I want to pause there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get to this comment from Andrea here. So I love the quote that says, we get the life we tolerate, and sometimes we tolerate more than we should. We need to learn not to tolerate putting ourselves last. And, you know, we're tolerating leaving all the bricks in the backpack too, which weighs us down and makes it all harder for us, I think.
Yeah. Desiree, I also hope that some of what I shared here, yeah, I think that's where it came from. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is, right? I mean, endurance is a part of life. Like, we also choose sometimes what we have to endure, but many times we don't, right? Like, we just don't. Like, the shit, like, you, my friend James, are a black man in America, and you have to endure a bunch of nasty things.
You're a member of the LGBT plus community, and you're enduring the same nonsense too, right?
Yeah. So there's things that we choose to endure, and there's things that are completely not in our control, which we just have to take on. And it's those paper cuts and paper cuts. So I think one of the things that you can master, the only thing you can control is yourself and is your mindset. And that's really, really challenging when, you know, you have to endure things that you're enduring and whatnot. But I do think that a system of peers and friendship and community changes your life. And I could use more friends. I could use more peers. You know, like the reason I know this is like through design. When I started my first company in January 2012, after 9 years in a corporate career that nearly killed me, I was so burned out I couldn't say my name. I didn't know who I was. I was late 20s. I didn't recognize myself. So January 2012, I start my first little company, and I was like, I need to be surrounded by other people that understand what this means. So I founded Women Who Start Up, a huge organization and foundation that turned into thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs talking about this stuff every single month, and then eventually every single day online. And that changed my life. It was the hardest goddamn thing I've ever had to do because it was a passion project that took a life of its own. And as a woman, I couldn't get any funding for that. You want to talk about fucking resilience? Woof. You know, everybody under the sun wanted this thing, but nobody was willing to put any cash behind it because it would change the social norms around access to resources and capital and all these things. That's resilience. That's enduring a lot of rejection, but I did it anyway. And it fundamentally, when I look back on it, it is the life-changing events of my life.
Yeah, I think. Oh, by the way, I just sent you a DM in the chat. If you take a look at that real quick. You know, just because we can endure and just because we can be resilient doesn't mean we want to be all the time. And we talked about that at the top. And I'll say, and this is a different conversation for maybe a different day, but I think I can only, because I only talk about what I know. So, you know, during the pandemic, I was virtual schooling my young twins. My daughter had really bad ADHD. I was starting a nonprofit, didn't have any nonprofit experience. It was really hard. I mean, I was stressed out, like my back was in knots. But things were flowing, you know, and things were going great. And I say that to say that sometimes when we're in alignment, we attract things to us and things can just kind of be easier. So the whole hustle culture, the toxicity of that, like we have to avoid that. Like I hate the whole spitballing thing, the shotgun approach, the throwing spaghetti against the wall. It gives me agita when I talk to people and they want to try to do that with me because I'm very intentional. Like I will not move or make a move until I'm inspired to do it. So when I'm in that space and I do that, good things happen. So people are like, oh man, you're working really hard. But actually, no, I just came back from a 12-mile bike ride. It's 3:00 in the afternoon. And yeah, we just got a $20,000 commitment for the foundation. Boom. Right. So trying to get in alignment as best you can. And we can't get into that right now because we're out of time. But yeah, Lizelle said great comments. Yes. Friends are the most important assets in this world. Listen. Oh my God. Yes. So true. So do you want to just like leave with one parting thought before we wrap up here, Lizelle?
Sure. Gosh. And happy to continue the conversation. If people want to reach me on social, I'm at Hey Lizelle,
Yes,
and I can leave
absolutely.
some of that
Hang on,
stuff.
I'll put that
Yeah.
up there. I got
I'm on
that right there.
LinkedIn.
You could
Yeah,
follow her, Hey
exactly.
Lizelle.
Yeah, and we can chat more, and
Yeah,
I'm happy to have, DM me, have a chat, whatever you
yeah.
need. I'm there for you. Parting words. This was a part two of, resilience in modern times. And I love the topic, which, Alex kicked off for us, and we had a great conversation about. And as I think about this, I think, entrepreneurship is such a human experience of personal growth. It exposes a lot that most people aren't, exposed to. Like every day you have to figure out, who am I? What am I made of? Can I do another day? Can I do another week? Can I go more, harder, faster, slower, whatever? And so it's this constant um scale of dealing with choice and what we choose to endure and the life that we want to design for ourselves, the people that we want to include on our journeys. So I think when you get to an adult age, which most of us are, and most listening today, we need to start being extremely okay with choosing what we allow into our lives and how. Because Andrea said that earlier in one of her comments, we think we should endure all these things, and we shouldn't.
No,
And we
we don't have
shouldn't.
to. We don't have to. We
It's
don't have to.
tough. Some things are truly engineered into the social systems and DNA. It is very difficult sometimes as a woman to just be taken seriously. It is very difficult sometimes to be in a room with a bunch of straight people who are just homophobic. It is ridiculous for a Black, brown, um, uh, person of color founder to be in a room where it's majority, straight white people, and to just constantly endure not feeling safe, not feeling heard, not being able to live up to your human potential because of all these labels and things that systematic and systemic social norms have engineered into being normal, and they're far from normal. We accept these kinds of things. And you have to make a choice in your life. Am I going to be at war with those things? Or am I going to accept social norms to a degree, but I'm going to engineer a life for myself that brings me some peace, that brings me success, and surround myself with other people that have that same mindset, mantra, and focus in life. And I think that's easier said than done, but I do believe with everything in my fiber that it's not only possible, but it's attainable. And I wish that for everybody.
Awesome. So this is the last comment from Andrea. I think I'll kind of wrap up here. Aligning with the energy of ease and joy brings you more than the energy of struggle. And, we're talking about being intentional. I am endeavoring to do that, especially around my words and how I talk about what's going on. Because just because things are, one way, which may not be the way I want them to be, I don't want to talk about them too much because I don't want to give them too much energy and put my focus on that. So it's like this constant mind games I'm playing. And, I used to use the word struggle a lot. And when I stopped using the word struggle, a funny thing happened.
Yes.
I stopped struggling.
Yeah.
So, for whatever that's worth for anybody listening, hopefully that's helpful. But I think one of the main takeaways for me is something you said, Lizelle, about stopping to take the bricks out the backpack, because it's going to be bricks. It's just getting up every day and going to do our thing. There's going to be bricks. But we have to be mindful and intentional of going for walks, riding a bike, meditating, like Alex talked about earlier, whatever it is that you need to do to refresh. Because like you said at the top, Al, resilience is like springing back. It's like bouncing back, right? If you don't take the time to recover,
Mm.
you're not going to be resilient by definition. So you have to take the time to do those things,
Yeah.
like watch the way you talk about yourself to yourself and the way you think about what's going on,
Yeah.
and put your oxygen mask on first, like somebody else said.
Yeah.
Somebody said, focus on what you do want, not what you do not want.
Mm.
That's good. As I like to put it another way, what you appreciate appreciates.
Mm.
So I'm gonna leave it there. This was great. Thank you so much, Lizelle.
Thanks, James.
We'll come back with some more interesting things. Like, follow us on Twitter, everybody. You can find me here, James Oliver Jr. Lizelle is at Hey Lizelle. You can follow Kabila here. But hit me up on Twitter. Let me know if somebody said church. Exactly. We took them to church today a little bit. If you have some other things that you want to talk about, some topics, we could get together and talk about these things because, we got to be here for each other. Being a founder is not for people with a weak stomach.
Even though none of us have good stomachs, swear to God.
I like to jokingly say, if you're a founder, you have to have the stomach of a thief. Whatever that means. I just think it's hilarious. I don't know. So
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for coming in. Thanks, Kaya. Thanks, Desiree. We appreciate you. Thanks, Damon. We appreciate all y'all. Hey, Tawana. Good to see everybody. We'll see you next time. Hang out one second, Lizelle. See you next time, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.